welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're doing well. Welcome to another video and welcome back to another cozy wrap-up. We are back yet again for another cozy wrap-up, and these are one of my favorite videos to film because I get to get in some pajamas, get cozy. I have a blanket, I have a nice cup of tea here, and I get to just talk to you guys about books and just talk over my thoughts of some of the books that I've read recently over the month of, what month are we in? November, September, what fucking month are we? October. Of the month of October. I would love to know down below what books you read in October and ones that you really enjoyed or ones that you didn't. Let me know if I should steer clear of any of them. Please let me know your thoughts. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to talk over my stats, and then of course we'll jump into all of the books I read and my thoughts on them. I apologize if the angle changed, but I didn't like how it looked, so I changed it. But let's go ahead and talk over stats. So in the month of October, I read a total of 16 books. With those 16 books, I read a total of 4,424 pages. That is about an average of 143 pages a day and an average book size of 277 pages. I listened to 122 hours of audiobooks. As for my formats this month, I read 12 mixed media books, 3 physical books, and 1 ebook. For my star ratings, I had 8 5 stars, 5 4 stars, and 3 3 stars, which brings my average rating this month to 4.33. And then for my genres, I read 6 fantasies, 5 romances, 3 graphic novels, 1 mystery, and 1 paranormal romance. I read 6 adult books, 5 young adult books, 3 middle grade books, and 2 new adult books. As for my representation, I read 3 books with illness rep, 1 book with disability rep, and 1 book with mental health rep, which means 11 of the books that I read this month had no representation at all. As for my POC breakdowns, I read 3 books written by a POC author, which means that 13 of the books were not written by a POC author. And I read 5 books that featured a POC main character, which means that 11 books did not. Then for my LGBTQI+ rep breakdown, I read 3 books where the main character was part of the community, 3 books where I was present in a side character, which means that 10 of the books that I read this month had no LGBTQI+ rep. As for that breakdown, I read 3 books with bisexual rep, 1 book with gay representation, 1 book with trans representation, and 1 book that was non-specific. I read 10 books written by women, 2 books written by a man, 2 books written by a non-binary author, 1 book written by an author that is non-specific, and 1 book written by multiple authors. I read 11 books in a series, and 5 of them were standalones, and I finished 1 series this month. 15 of these books I was reading for the very first time, and 1 of them was a reread. 15 of the books that I read this month were owned by myself, and then 1 of them was gifted to me. As for my publication years, I read 3 books published in 2021, 4 books published in 2020, 3 books published in 2019, 1 book published in 2018, 1 book published in 2017, 2 books published in 2015, 1 book published in 2012, and 1 book published in 2008. And finally, for my color breakdowns, I read 4 white books, 3 black books, 2 green books, 2 red books, 2 gray books, 1 blue book, 1 yellow book, and 1 purple book. Alright, that is it for my stats for this month. Let's go ahead and jump into all 16 books that I read in the month of October and give you all of my thoughts and opinions on them. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I apologize for the lighting. I did not feel like taking my lighting out. I'm still in the process of unpacking and getting my life situated, so I apologize. I promise it'll get better for the future, but my bad. Okay, the first book that we're going to talk about is The Undercover Bromance by Lisa K. Adams. I really enjoyed the second book in this series. If you guys don't know what the series is, it follows a group of high-profile men who all have a book club called the Bromance Book Club, where they get together and read romance books to help them with their marriages and their relationships. This particular book follows Brayden Mack and Liv, who is the sister from the first book, and it is their hate-to-love romance between the two of them. Basically, Mack ends up getting Liv fired from her job after an incident that happens with a very expensive dessert. And with all of that, there was a ton of fallout. But also, as she was leaving, she witnessed something that wasn't necessarily supposed to be seen, but she was super glad that she saw it because it was a case of potential sexual assault. And that's kind of where this book lives. Lisa K. Adams definitely took inspiration from a romantic suspense and kind of wrote that into the novel to kind of tie in the book club group book for this time around. And so it was a fun read. It was super funny. There is a specific scene in this book that had me crying laughing. I was laughing so hard. I ended up giving this book a 5-star. I thought it was really well done. I love the writing. I love the romance. There are some steamy scenes in here which definitely tick all of my boxes. And I just loved how much character growth was happening between the two characters. They were each working on their own shit, realizing that they both had issues that they needed to work on, and I liked that at the end, you know, you have that grand gesture moment, but both of them were trying to do different grand gestures for each other, and I really loved it. I thought it was super sweet. I thought it was super cute. Obviously, it's a romance but most romances end with a happy ending, and this was no exception. I really enjoyed it. I think that every book so far that I've read in this series has been phenomenal. I'm really excited for book 3 and 4, and hopefully I can get around to them soon. The next 3 books were really, really random. They were not on my TBR, but I was sitting here thinking, I really would like to knock down my TBR just a little bit, so what can I pick up that will help me do that? And I thought, graphic novels. So the first one that I picked up was The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. I'm considering this as a graphic novel because it could technically be children's, but it's also adult. It has illustrations, but it's not a kid's book, so I put it in a graphic novel. This is a really sweet story about a boy, a mole, a fox, and a horse that all meet together on a journey basically around their area, around the world. It doesn't really specify, but they all meet up and create this unlikely friendship, this kind of found family situation where they're all learning from each other and different experiences in each other's lives, and it was just a really sweet book. You can honestly flip to any page and there would be a little pocket of wisdom that you can really just enjoy. This one says, everyone is a bit scared, says the horse, but we are less scared together. I just think that it's really cute. The illustrations are very whimsical and artsy and kind of unfinished, which I really enjoyed. And it was just a beautiful read all in all. It did bring me to tears. I don't remember exactly what page it was, but it was something about being enough. And it got me. It really did. I've heard so many people cry over this book, and I am no exception. I really enjoyed it. And if you're looking for a good book, a good pick-me-up, that's going to be a quick and easy read, I highly recommend this one. All right, next up on the graphic novel train is The TDragon Society by Kay O'Neill. I am covering up the author's name just because it does have their dead name on it. Kay O'Neill has recently come out as non-binary, and I believe the new editions that are being printed of this do have the correct name, which is really great. I'm kind of hoping that it goes into effect rather soon, just so they can have the proper representation on their books. But this graphic novel was super sweet, super cute. It is literally a book about these cute little tea dragons and where they came from, how they came to be, and the purpose that they serve in these individuals' lives. And it was really, really well done. There's also some LGBTQI plus representation in here. There's also representation for disability, which was really, really well done. I enjoyed every second of this graphic novel. It is very, very short, very, very slim, but it was a great ride. I didn't want it to be over. I wanted to reread it right after I finished it, and it was just so well done. And the tea dragons in here, they're so cute. I want one. Somebody get me one. Please and thank you. Up next, the last graphic novel that I read this month is Bingo Love. This is by T. Franklin, Jen St. Ange, and Joy San. This was a very, very, very cute LGBTQI plus graphic novel. It basically follows these 2 girls when they are in high school who are creating a relationship in, I believe, the 80s, or maybe it was the 70s, maybe less than that. I'm not really sure. It's the 60s. Oh man, it was in the 60s when being LGBTQI plus, being out and proud was a dangerous, dangerous thing. And basically they start to create this small, cute relationship, but things kind of go downhill when they are found out. And the story is picked up years and years later when they are older and have children and grandchildren, and they run into each other, and their love story picks up from there. Both of them are already married, and I think this was told and constructed in such a beautiful way, and when you get to the end and you realize why the story is being told, it's just so beautifully well done. There was a lot of extras in this book. I think there was 5 or 6 extras of the 2 main characters' life and different scenarios that they went through and different milestones in their relationship, which I thought was really sweet and cute. I really enjoyed it. If you're looking for a fun graphic novel, I would definitely recommend it, and if you like bingo, you'll love this. I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but I gave all 3 of those graphic novels 5 stars. I don't think I mentioned it when I was talking about them, but they were all 5 stars, all amazing, totally recommend them, love, love, love. Anyways, moving on, the next book that I'm going to talk about is The Battle of the Labyrinth by Rick Riordan, the 4th book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympians series, and I enjoyed this one. I didn't love it as much as I thought that I was going to moving on with the series, but I think it had a lot to do, unfortunately, with the audiobook. The first 3 books in this series I read for a 24-hour readathon. If you have seen that video, you would know, but I read them physically. I did not read the audiobooks for these ones, and for the 4th one, I switched over to the audiobook thinking, it'll help me get through it faster. It'll be great. I didn't love this audiobook. I ended up enjoying it by the end. It took me a good halfway through the audiobook to start to reacclimate and enjoy the story. It was just, I didn't really understand why they did what they did. I understand that it's a middle grade, but they chose to use adult narrators for these voices, but to make their voices sound like little kids, and they were like, hi, And I was like, I don't like that. It just sounded weird and strange to me, but once I got the hang of the audiobook, I enjoyed the story a little bit more. This was actually used to be my favorite book in the series. I don't think that's the case anymore, but I'm gonna wait on my judgment for that until I get around to book 5. But I did give this one a 4-star. I enjoyed it. I just didn't enjoy it as much as I probably could have if I read it physically. All right, up next we have one of the ebooks that I read this month, and that is Dirty First Dates, The Museum. This, I don't remember who the author of this book is, but it was a really short novella where I think it's the same premise for the entire thing. It's this girl who has had a crush on this guy, and then she finally asks him out on a date, or he asks her on a date, and they go to this museum, and you find out that he likes kinky shit, just like all the rest of the guys in this short little novella series. It played very much towards a daddy kink. There was some interesting kinks in this book. All of her descriptions lay out the kinks for you if you were interested in reading these little short novellas. It was very smutty. It was very hot if you like that. It's been a little while since I read this, but it was good when I read it. I don't really know how much to say about this one. I gave it a 4-star. It was a quick, easy, fun read. I had a great time with it. It was definitely hot and sexy. So when it comes to rating my smut, it couldn't not get a 4-star. I mean, I don't really know. It wasn't a 5-star, but it wasn't a 3-star either. So we're just gonna move along. But if you want to read a smutty novella, I would recommend it. All right, up next we have The In-Between. This is by Rebecca S.K. Ansari, and I loved this middle grade. I loved this middle grade so much. It was so well done. This follows, I forgot his name. No one is surprised. Cooper, who is really struggling with his life right now. His dad has left his mom for another family and is about to have a new kid. And he's just really struggling with learning how to be happy with his life again and finding joy in the mundane and the everyday. But he's also kind of consumed by this creepy girl that lives across the street. And she is kind of like a ghost. She's there one second, gone the next, and he doesn't quite understand what's happening. But when he stumbles upon, or his sister actually stumbles upon, an article that has to do with a boy that was found dead at a train station during a big train attack that was never claimed. His body was never identified and never claimed by anybody. But the crest that the little boy was wearing when he died is the same crest on the jacket of the girl next door. And so they kind of go on this journey to figure out what connection does she have, what is happening, and why does this girl seem to be connected to every bad event that happens of their knowledge. And it was a very interesting middle grade mystery. I thought it was so much fun. It was so well written. I enjoyed how much lessons were put in here about self-forgiveness and moving on from family drama and learning to love and trust again. And it was just so well done. The friendships in here was just amazing, and it was amazing, and I loved it. If you're looking for a really good middle grade, I highly, highly recommend this one. It's definitely going on my favorites of the year list. 5 out of 5 stars for me. All right, up next we have Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This one was really good. I ended up giving this one a 4-star. It wasn't quite a 5-star read for me, and that is only because the beginning of this book took me a little while to get into it. Aiden Thomas took a very drawn-out approach to the beginning of this book that kind of lost me there at the beginning, but once we got into the meat and potatoes of the story, I really ended up enjoying this one. This one follows Yadriel, who is a trans brujo who's really trying to prove to his family that he can be a brujo, regardless of the gender that he was born into. He is really trying to prove himself, and in order to do that, he decides that he is going to summon his cousin who has recently passed. He's going to summon his ghost and pass him over into the afterlife so that he can prove that he has the abilities of a brujo. But when he tries to do that, he accidentally summons the resident bad boy in town who has just recently died, and they create a wonderful, beautiful romance between the two of them that I really, really enjoyed. This had some wonderful side characters. It has a wonderful representation. There's also some great topics in here about veganism, which I really enjoyed. Overall, it was a very fun book. The writing was very well done. I loved the LGBTQI plus representation. The romance in here was just swoon-worthy, and I really, really enjoyed it. Just the beginning of the book didn't quite bring it all in for me, so I didn't give it that full 5 stars, but I think I rated it on Storygraph a 4.5, so very, very close, just not a full 5. There's a plane. Not a plane. My butt hurts. Okay, I feel like the plane is far enough away now. The next book that we're going to talk about is unfortunately our first 3-star of the month, and that is Set Fire to the Gods by Sarah Rosh and Kristen Simmons. I wanted to love this, and I did really enjoy the book. I just didn't love it as much as I thought that I was going to. I felt like the actual, storyline of this book was a little lackluster. I didn't fall in love with the characters. I didn't fall in love with any of it really, and I found the world building of this book to be kind of confusing, which is very, very sad for me to say because I loved Kristen Simmons' other books, which I have read the first 2 books in her Vale Hall series, and I really enjoyed that. But I just found this to be a bit convoluted, a little hard to follow, and I just didn't have the best time with this. I can't even really explain to you what the synopsis of this is, so I'm going to read you the synopsis because I don't think that I'm going to do it justice. But if you are interested, at least you'll have a bit of an idea of what this book is about. It says, Ash is descended from a long line of gladiators. She knows the brutal nature of war firsthand, but after her mother dies in the arena, she vows to take action against the fire god, whose temper has stripped her country of its resources. Maddox grew up fighting on the streets to pay his family's taxes, but he hides a dangerous secret. He doesn't have the earth god's power like his opponents. His elemental gift is something else, something that hasn't been seen in centuries. When an attempted revenge plot goes dangerously wrong, Ash inadvertently throws the 2 gods into a conflict that can only be settled by deadly, lavish gladiator games, landing Maddox directly in Ash's path. She realizes that his powers are the weapon her rebellion needs, but Maddox won't jeopardize his family, regardless of how intrigued he is by the beautiful warrior. But when the gods force Maddox's hand, he and Ash uncover an ancient war that will threaten more than one immortal. It will unravel the world. So, again, the synopsis of this book sounded really good, and I enjoyed parts of it, didn't enjoy all of it. I think the writing style could have been a little bit tighter, wrapped up a little bit neater. This is co-written, so maybe that had a part to play in how disjointed it felt for me, but I did enjoy it, and I will move on to book 2. I did actually buddy read this with my friend Mike. We're going to be discussing it, I'm sure, soon, so we can discuss our thoughts about the book, but I wish that I loved it more than I did. 3 stars, still a good rating. I was hoping for a 5-star. Okay, the next book that I'm going to talk about is the last ebook that I read for this month, and that is Under the Mistletoe with Me. This is by Kristen Proby. This is I think it's 1.5 in the With Me in Seattle series that I've been reading. It is an adult romance series that I have read and enjoyed most of the books in. This was a cute little novella that was sent in Christmas time. It was very cute. It follows, I'm not going to remember their names, but it follows the heroine who has been married to her husband for quite some time. They recently just had a baby, and after having this baby, she's really struggling with kind of self-confidence and feeling secure in her relationship, and so she thinks that her husband is cheating after she gets some weird signals from him during a family event. But it's just their cute romance of them rekindling their relationship after having kind of grown apart a little bit during early marriage and having kids, and it was just a really cute novella. It was very cute, very sweet. It definitely gave me winter vibes, so I kind of wish that I had read this in December, but overall it was adorable, and I'm really glad that I read it. I gave it a 4-star, and I will definitely continue on with more of that series. Okay, again, another 3-star that I wish that I loved more, and that is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. Am I going to continue on with the series? Yes. Do I wish that I loved it more than I did? Yes. So this one follows Mare, who lives with her family in the district of the Reds. There are Reds and then there are Silvers. The Silvers are royalty. They are beloved in the world that they live in, but the Reds are kind of like lowly slaves that are nothing but dirt to the Silvers. And after something happens at like a event that the Silvers are hosting, Mare finds out that she is a bit different than everyone else. She's not a Silver, but she's also not purely a Red. She has some powers that she really shouldn't have, and her existence can bring down this whole hierarchy that in the world they live in. And that's basically what you're following. You're trying to figure out what she is, what role she plays, but she's also trying to start a rebellion to bring down the Silvers, and that's what this first book follows. I just didn't connect with the characters as much as I would have wanted to. I think the writing was okay. I actually liked the writing most of the book, so I will definitely read more of Victoria Aveyard's work. I will probably read more of the series because I do own book 2, but I'll kind of see how I feel after I read book 2 since I already own it. This book was on my These Books Will Self-Destruct in 12 months video. I'm glad that I read it. I gave it a 3-star. It wasn't terrible. It just wasn't the best book that I've ever read. I've definitely read better fantasies. Granted, this was published a little while ago, I believe in maybe 2015, and it's kind of its time. It's very timely, kind of follows the same normal tropes that happened around the 2015 era. So I tried to cut some slack, which is the reason why I did get a 3-star and nothing lower, but it wasn't the best thing that I've ever read. Let's talk about a book that I loved, and that is The Marionettes by Katie Wismer. Y'all know how much I love Katie and how much I rep her on this channel. If you are not following her, if you are not reading the descriptions of her books, go check out her Goodreads, go check out her 2 channels. She is literally amazing. This is her fifth book that she has published. 2 of them were poetry books. The other 3 were full-length novels. And this is her first foray, whatever, into paranormal romance. And I really enjoyed this. This follows Valerie Darkmoor, who is a witch She's one of the last Darkmoor witches, and basically the witches are relied on by the vampires to keep their magic and their world stable. And Valerie is a very well-known witch just because she is the last and most powerful of her kind, basically. And when the trials start to happen to prove that she can be a part of the Marionettes, which is a league of witches that take care and help the vampires, things start to go terribly wrong, and she realizes that she might be in more danger than she thought. This is a book that definitely would keep you on your toes. It's very twisty-turny. It's very short as well for a fantasy, so it was very easy and quick to fly through. I enjoyed the writing. I enjoyed what was starting to brew of a romance here. I think this could be a very fantastic series, and this left off on a huge cliffhanger. So I need answers. I need you to tell me what's happening. I'm very happy to say that the next book is coming out on December 4th of this year, so I won't have to wait too much longer, but I'm very, very excited for this. And if you haven't checked out Katie before, this is your push to do it. Go do it. Okay, another book that I absolutely loved, a new favorite of the year, and that is Middlegame by Shauna McGuire. I loved this book so much. I did not think that I was going to love it. I was actually convinced I was going to hate it, which is why I put it on my intimidating TBR books, because I really did not think this book was going to be for me. But boy, was I surprised, because yes, I was. It was a chunky book, but I flew through it. I think I read it in like 3 days, and I really, really enjoyed it. This book follows Roger and Dodger. Yeah, I thought that I would hate it just for the Roger and Dodger standpoint, but I loved it. Anyways, Roger and Dodger, who are twins, but they don't know that each other exist. And when the twins are 9 years old, they start to be able to communicate with each other through what they like to call quantum entanglement. And you know, based off of the beginning of the story, that they were created by this guy named Reed, who is trying to get them to, I forget what it is, the Golden City, I forget what it's called, but he's trying to get them to basically be gods so that they could be immortal. But the twins don't know that yet. They're just trying to figure out why they are able to talk to each other, why they're so weird. Dodger is a mathematician. She's very good at math. That's her specialty, whereas Roger is specializing in words and language. And they kind of offset each other, and you go on this very crazy, perilous journey with the two of these characters, and you try to figure out, first of all, where the storyline is going, and secondly, how these two characters play off of each other in a way that makes this world make sense. It is a very twisty-turny book. It has a lot of interesting tropes and vibes to it. You're definitely dealing with time, and you have a very interesting concept of reality, and there's so many things and so many questions that you have throughout this entire book. My favorite thing about this book was that I was confused through most of it, which is not something that I would say for a lot of books, but this worked for this book. I was confused. I had so many questions, and by the time I got to the end, I realized how genius it was. It's a masterful book, so well done. Loved it so much. If you haven't already picked this up, or if you've been afraid to pick this up, this is me telling you, you need to give it a try. Even if you don't absolutely love it, I would have to say you have to give it a try, because it was so well done, and it may not work for everybody, but I think that it could work for a lot of you. Again, don't know if I said it, 5 out of 5 stars. Actually, I thought that my other ebook was my last ebook, but this is actually my last ebook, and that is Two Kingdoms. This is by Christy Cunnings. This is the 3rd book in the Dark Side series. This is a reverse harem series that I've been reading that follows these Death Reapers and a ghost lover. It's a reverse harem with 4 guys and 3 girls, and the heroine is a ghost, but at the beginning of the first novel, she ends up protecting the guys, and she's able to level up, and she can transfer between her ghost form or her phantom form and a human form, and you're trying to figure out why she has this strange connection to these men. At the beginning of the first book, she can't really leave the men's sight, or else she kind of loses her connection to this world. And so you know that they have a very strong connection. Their powers and their abilities are strengthened when they're around the heroine, but you don't really know exactly why or what connection that they have. And so the first book, you are working on figuring that out, and you move that through books 2 and 3. This is very, very popular on TikTok. I've heard a lot of people talking about this and absolutely loving it. And I keep kicking the tripod, I'm so sorry. I just happen to be in the minority. I don't love this series. I think that it is almost like too poorly written for me. And I am pretty lenient when it comes to romances. I just like a good romantic book, but I think that's also a hindrance for this series, because I'm on book 3. This is supposed to be a sexy adult reverse harem series, and they've had sex 3 times. And none of that even happened in book 1. Excuse me, sir? I'm unhappy, okay? So yeah, I think that it could use some work. It's very, very lengthy, and in regards to dialogue, there's too much dialogue, which makes the world building very hard to understand, at least for me. I'm not loving it, but I only have one more book in this series to finish it out, and I am curious to see the connection between everything, and hopefully I can understand the connections, because right now I feel like there's tons of plot holes and I'm confused, but I'm interested to read it. So I gave that one a 3-star. I will read the rest of the series, but I didn't love it. The second to last book that we're going to talk about today is Corrupt by Penelope Douglas. This one was a very interesting book. This follows Erica, or they call her Rika, and it follows her as it's kind of like an interesting book because it is told in dual timelines. So you're following Rika at the present timeline where she is just coming out of a relationship with her ex-boyfriend, and she's still kind of pent up on her ex-boyfriend's brother. She has pined for him for years, and she's always wanted to kind of cross over to the dark side and date the bad boy in the family, but it just never quite came to fruition. And then you're also following another timeline where Rika is in high school, and she kind of gets involved with this guy named Michael, who is her ex's boyfriend, and he is known for being one of the 4 horsemen, the kind of guy that comes back every year to wreak havoc on one specific day called Riot Night, where things kind of get hectic and crazy, and they're known for just pushing the boundaries, breaking the rules, and because their parents are from money, they don't really get in trouble for anything that they do. However, one day Rika is supposedly involved in the 3 of the 4 horsemen getting sent to jail, and now you're following the present timeline where Michael is trying to get revenge on Rika. So you're following Michael's perspective and Rika's perspective in both timelines. It's a very interestingly told book. I really enjoyed the writing aspect of this. However, this is a dark romance, and for me, I like Penelope Douglas. I love her writing. I love how dark and gritty she gets, but I think this took dark a little bit too far, in my personal opinion. I think there were some lines crossed that I didn't really enjoy. And I didn't love it. Check your trigger warnings for this. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but you should definitely check trigger warnings for this one. It's definitely a dark romance, to say the least. I gave it a 4 stars. It's not my favorite of Penelope Douglas. Not my least favorite, but not my favorite. So I enjoyed the book. I will continue on with the series. I just didn't love exactly where it went. And the last and final book that we're going to talk about today is The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. I loved this book so much. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. It was so enjoyable, so much fun. Can I remember her name? Clara? Oh my god, I remembered it. Clara is the main character of this book. She is an Everwitch, which basically means that she can harness all 4 powers of the seasons in order to... She basically becomes the most powerful witch. The Everwitches don't really exist. She's the only one left in existence. And this book really focuses on climate change and environmental struggles that we're having in today's day, but also set in a fantasy backdrop where Clara is really dependent on to help stabilize the weather and the crazy environmental changes that are happening. The witches are supposed to be helping to regulate all of that stuff, but as the normal human people continue to use and abuse the world, they're having a harder time regulating all of that. And so you're following Clara through the seasons as she's trying to grapple with her magic, because her magic tends to hurt the people that she loves around her, and she really doesn't know if she wants to keep it or if she's actually going to be able to do any good or help the people around her. And so you kind of go through this and you kind of work through her mind as she's trying to figure out what she's going to do and where she stands. It was a very interesting fantasy. I love the elemental magic that's in here. It has a very, very wonderful romance between Clara and a guy named Song, and I just really enjoyed it. It was sweet. It was perfect for the fall time. It was just so well done. I loved how atmospheric and beautiful it was. The writing was stunning, and there's a specific portion of this book that really I love every time it's done, and that's when one particular symbolic thing is mentioned throughout the entire book in different cases. I don't want to spoil it because I don't want to ruin the surprise for anyone else, but it has a very specific thing that happens at the beginning of every chapter, and once you get to the end, you get an idea of what that is and why it's meaningful, and I love when books do that. It just makes it feel a little bit more put together, and like the author took an extra step to make it feel more whole, and I really enjoyed it. 5 out of 5 stars. I will definitely read more from Rachel Griffin in the future. I believe this is her debut novel, so good on you. It was fantastic. I loved it. Highly recommend. Okay, that is the last and final book that I'm going to talk about today. I just want to quickly talk about my favorite book of the month and my favorite quotes, and then we will wrap up this video. Honestly, I was surprised that this one ended up in my favorites of the month and favorites of the year list, really, and that is, of course, Middlegame by Shauna McGuire. I love this book so much. It was the highlight of my month, and I'm so, so glad that I read it. And the quotes that I have here are actually from Middlegame, so I'm going to quickly just read those to you. Both of them are kind of synonymous. Is that the same? Is that a word? Basically, it's two parts of the same quote that are just a couple sentences apart. It basically says, people who say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, don't understand how words can be stones, hard and sharp-edged and dangerous, and capable of doing so much more harm than anything physical. And the next quote says, words can be whispered bullets, quick when no one's looking, and words don't leave blood or bruises behind. Words disappear without a trace. That's what makes them so powerful. That's what makes them so important. That's what makes them hurt so much. And that's just, it really got me in my feels, and I loved it. I love this book so much. Again, I'm urging you to give it a try. It was so, so well done. But that is the end of this very long video. These wrap-ups are always so long. I really need to try to do mid-month wrap-ups because they're always a heck of a long video, so I apologize for that, but I hope that you made it to the end and enjoyed it. If you didn't make it to the end, leave a candle emoji because this candle is amazing. I got it in a book box, and it smells fantastic. But that's besides the point. Let me know down below if you've read any books in October that you really loved, or ones you didn't. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to chat with you. But that is the end of this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give it a big old thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave. And of course, leave any comments, questions, and suggestions in the comment section below. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Thanks, baby. Turn it down like a sweet